Super. Go for it.
All right. So on the question of entrepreneurship in Guadalajara and the startup environment there, I think out of all of Mexico, it's one of the strongest cities. And my favorite examples there are Onswipe, of course, my company. We have our first and lead engineer. He was based out of Guadalajara. But there's also other startups that are pointing towards the world for their market. Ovia, that means also a company in Guadalajara with an entrepreneur, Mexican entrepreneur, that all of their operations are in Guadalajara, Mexico, but their market is global. And what they do is human resources software for recruiting. And the same way, Uyala, which is a company started by former Google employees and executives, it's also based out of Guadalajara. It's the city where I've seen the most global-facing products from entrepreneurs that are from there. And so I see a big future for Guadalajara and Mexico in general, but specifically because they're building those global products that we don't see enough anywhere in Latin America.
And what is there about Guadalajara in the environment or the nature of the startups there that leads entrepreneurs to take this more global perspective?
I haven't been able to pinpoint it, because if I was able to do that, I could see why, or explain why it doesn't happen somewhere else in Mexico or anywhere else in the region, really. My very rough hypothesis is that Guadalajara is close enough to the U.S. In terms of, a plane to Silicon Valley is like 2 hours and a half or 3 hours. And there's a lot of connections already. There's a lot of contacts that Guadalajara entrepreneurs have with Silicon Valley. It's easy to go back and forth. But it's also not too close that all of the industries surround border trade. Like Tec de Monterrey, like Monterrey and all those border towns. Also security can be an issue. But it's also not too far where it's not even a question of how can we reach the U.S. And that's what happens in the South. In Tabasco, in those regions, it's bubbling in entrepreneurship, but a lot is still being driven by working for Pemex, and working for the government. And I'm assuming it's because they're a little bit further, geographically further, and it's harder to fly into the U.S. from the South than it is from Guadalajara.
Excellent. Very, very good. That is super. I will send a link